Episode 7 with Bryce Cornet on the 9-Point Start with a Dream podcast. Welcome to the 9-Point Start with a Dream podcast, where our goal is to showcase athletes and the community that supports them through being real and authentic about the goals and journeys. I'm your host, Colby Gillum. Today's episode features Bryce Cornet. Bryce is an up-and-coming race car driver from Norman, Oklahoma. We talk about Bryce's journey from the early kart days to now working his way to Formula One racing, and a documentary he has coming out sharing more about his journey and the health alignment he had to overcome to get to where he is today. Don't want to share too much, so let's get to it. Hey Bryce, how's it going?
Hey Jacoby, appreciate you having me on. This is awesome.
So for those who don't know, Bryce and I went to college together at Oklahoma. We started in class and I would see like his race stuff and I was like, I want to know more about this. Fast forward 2 years later, or almost 2 years later, like, hey Bryce, you want to come on the podcast and talk about your journey? So
yeah, I appreciate you having me here. My name is Bryce. Me and Jacoby, like you said, had a marketing class at OU. We're in the marketing division together, so met each other there. I'm Bryce Cornet. I'm an aspiring race car driver from Norman, Oklahoma, and that's kind of my my vision right now, and has always been kind of my vision in terms of making it in racing. So that's currently kind of where my mindset and where it's kind of always been. So
when you were starting out, coming up in Norman, was that like your most kids think, basketball, football? So was your thing always driving?
Yeah. So well. It's funny because, most kids are usually wanting to be, astronauts or something. That's kind of like the stereotypical, the type of thing that people want to do. But I've always wanted to race. I think from the earliest I can remember, I remember being like 3 years old. And I used to go to bed watching this Jeff Gordon. Jeff Gordon was my favorite race car driver growing up when I was really young.
Okay.
I branched out from NASCAR. I love NASCAR. I love every form of racing, but I have a bunch of different drivers, but Jeff Gordon growing up was my main kind of idol. And so my room was decked out in Jeff Gordon stuff. I used to go to bed every night when I was younger watching, it was called Jeff Gordon Wide Open. It was talking about how he got into racing and some karting things in there and about how he got started. And I was probably about 4 or 5 when I was going to bed watching that. And then, the die-cast cars, in the middle of the living room at home playing with die-cast cars and seeing that. And so I think my parents definitely saw how much I liked racing. My dad had grown up liking racing, but never was able to financially get into it. But with go-karting, my parents got me into go-karting at age 6. So I started, they got me my first kart, and it kind of steamrolled from there. And so I know my dad started karting a little bit as well, early 2000s.
So how does karting kind of differ from, I guess, other racing types? Or I guess like karting kind of be like the college version of racing?
Yeah. So it's you could probably even really kind of like the elementary school of racing. You have different divisions in karting. You have kids as young as about 4 years old now getting into karting. When I first got in, my first kart was did about 50 miles per hour. So they're not super, super slow. This isn't when I used to tell people, or my friends when I was younger, that I used to race go-karts, they kind of thought it was like the celebration station or kind of the fun karts. But a little bit more serious. You learn a lot of your techniques, driving styles, how to take corners, just the basics of racing and basic techniques and sportsmanship and things like that are learned. Once you progress through the karting ranks, you get all the way up to shifter karts. It gets very competitive, and it's basically you can go pro in karting. Something that I was doing, there's a go-kart team in Norman, Oklahoma, Champion Racing, that have supported me throughout my whole racing career. And I raced with them from the age of 6, worked out at the track there for a long time, and raced for them for a long time. I did a race last year in karting as I'm kind of transitioning into cars now. But karting's a crazy world. You can learn a lot from it for sure.
So as an athlete, like how do you train? Is it more of a mental thing? Is it like I don't even know a lot about racing. So how do you really train as a driver?
Right. So a lot of it is in terms of training. You have to the more physically fit you are, the better off you're going to be. And I think racing doesn't get that type of acknowledgement sometimes. I think people think you can kind of wing it most times, but you have to have endurance. It's more muscular endurance for people that want to know that. I mean, the gym, of course, you got to do cardio, things like that, to just keep in shape. Not huge weights, you're not training for football or, lifting a lot of weights, but you definitely are training your endurance. And then of course it's mental as well. So a lot of that comes from just being on the track consistently and racing against others and being smart, being calm, not letting, things get the better of you, especially when things are on the line and things like that. So a lot of stress management and things like that come into play. It's almost like a chess match at times when you're racing against others that are highly competitive. So
what has been your journey been like so far? If you can describe it, like, how do you describe just the process of going from 6 years old to where you are now? Like, how's that been?
It's been an up and down deal. So definitely my parents have been so supportive always in my racing. They got me starting, like I said, when I was 6, got me my first kart. I started going out to the track immediately. Me and my dad would test every day. So we would go out to the racetrack, test every day after you get off work. And that continued for years and years. My dad's always been just my tuner, kind of like mechanic and mentor, and just a huge support system for my parents and my family in racing. But they've always supported me. I've never, my family is by far a huge rock for me in terms of progressing in racing. But you always have the financial aspect of racing. In 2010, in high school, I was sitting in geometry class and I had what felt like my heart was skipping beats. So I was having at the time what they call heart palpitations. I got up from class, called my mom. I was like, something's going on. I don't really know what's going on. It's kind of freaking me out a bit. I thought I was having a heart attack at 15, which was, I don't know what a heart attack felt like. So that was just my first reaction. Later on, I obviously went to the OU medical, and they diagnosed me that night with Wolff Parkinson White and SVT, which is supraventricular tachycardia, both heart abnormalities. I had 2 catheter ablation procedures that they were able to fix the issue, but during that time there was a lot of financial stress. My parents at the time were still backing a lot of my racing, and I couldn't race.
So what was that like? I mean, like, I know your passion was there, but
right, it's hard. So I think any athlete or anybody that's wanting to do something that is kind of being held back from something, get an injury, and you're not able to do something that you want to progress at. I was at a prime age for progressing in racing. I just got back from Toronto, Canada in my first Formula car and was offered a full ride for that next year, which was being considered. And it all was kind of put on the back burner. And that's definitely hard to do because you want to do it so bad, and you have so much time to progress. And unfortunately, when that happened financially, we just weren't able to race, which I understood at the time, but it definitely sucked. It was hard to do for the longest time.
was there ever like a thought in your mind like that you're going to be done racing forever?
No.
Okay.
And I definitely was going to race. I was still wearing a heart monitor whenever I hopped back into a go-kart. I was still in karts quite a bit at that time too. I was still wearing a heart monitor at one point whenever I was testing one day. So I was definitely not letting that stop me. There's a film that my friend and I are making about this and my racing called Driven that we're coming out with, if anybody wants to hear more about it. But in the gist of it, it was, it was financially strapping. I mean, racing is so much about financials and about how well you manage your money. And obviously, being that young, I worked as hard as I could. I worked whenever I wasn't at school to save up for racing and help my parents. And, that's at the time, though, medical bills were just too much.
So you went through that. Now you're getting ready to go to college. What is your thought process when it comes to like pursuing racing but still pursuing the college degree?
Yeah, so I was always able to balance racing with school pretty well. Throughout high school, I was obviously, whenever I found out about the heart issues, I was about a sophomore in high school. So I wasn't able to race through most of high school. But when I got into college, I was back into karting. I was able to get back into some race cars. I was doing test sessions and things. And so there was nothing that really was holding me back. But by the time I got out of high school, I was kind of more financially independent in terms of paying for my own racing and, taking more of that financial stress off my parents. My parents still helped me out. My dad supported me in my racing, would tune for me for karting events, but I was able to start paying for a majority of my racing and as much as I could.
How much does it cost for racing, like on average?
So you have two different forms. So karting was, at the pro level that we were racing at nationally and traveling, we would travel east and west coast, all around the United States. Biggest races and karting races, Las Vegas. Those can reach the tens of thousands roughly. But then you also have one of your best forms of car racing at an entry level is Formula Mazda, and it is roughly the same price, and it is a full open wheel car and easy to get into and a lot of fun to drive as well. So about 20,000 in the tens of thousands. But as you progress, it obviously gets more and more expensive.
In football, you got to buy cleats,
Yeah. Well, I always talk about how I wish race car drivers could be like drafted as it goes away, because a lot of times a lot of teams are also looking for financial assistance as well. So they're looking for what kind of sponsors you can bring onto the team as well as your driving abilities. So there's two different aspects. You have to both be a good driver, and you have to be have a business mind as well in terms of marketing and things. And I think that's why marketing was so interesting to me going into college.
So what about racing? Like, why do you love it?
Well, I like the thrill aspect of it, but there's just something about it. And also being in the car, there's just a feeling about being in the car that's, once you get into a flow of things and you're in your dimension and you're able to get out there and you're doing well, the feeling of the car, just being out on the track it's always been a lot of fun to me. Even just being at the racetrack, there's just something about being around that type of environment that's always been really exciting for me. And, I've just always had a huge passion for it.
Awesome. So you mentioned that you're working on like a documentary type of film. So is that kind of showing more of an insight, like kind of behind the scenes?
Yeah, so it's talking about my racing basically from day one. I have my parents talking to it. They've been such a great support of mine. So I got, my parents are talking in this. It talks a little bit about my growing up in Norman, Oklahoma, and racing karts, as well as progressing into racing cars currently, and trying to continue to find sponsors like I'm doing now to reach this 2018 season. So it does a really nice job. It's a short documentary called Driven. It's filmed by Wild Range Media and Trevor Rogers out of Norman, Oklahoma. And he's done a great job in terms of telling the story in a short amount of time. We're entering film festivals this year, and the movie is roughly about 7 minutes long. So it gives enough people time to sit down and take a look at it. And hopefully people are interested in it, but it tells a story definitely about my heart stuff and just kind of the struggles of dealing with that while trying to progress in racing as well.
That's crazy, because like I didn't even know you had the heart thing before we came in.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't. I mean, I had some friends text me. We were able to show just the trailer to a couple of friends, and they texted me or whatever and say, "Hey, I didn't know about your heart deal." And so there's a lot of people. I think it's a cool way to kind of show people, because that's another thing. When I was younger and I had the heart thing going on, I didn't really want people to know about it. I was more of like, I don't really want you to know about it. And it talks about, I guess I didn't really know how serious it could have been. For me, it was just, I'm going to the doctor. I'm going to get it figured out. I eventually did. I had a great cardiologist who partially cured. So I'm not completely cured of this. I could have another ablation procedure, but did a great job to where I'm having no side effects. At the time, I didn't think it was a big deal, because I was able to go to the doctor and it was done and I went home. but my parents had to go through some struggles too, both in just the stress of it. And that Driven, the short film, does a good job about telling about those certain types of things.
Awesome. So will it be like on YouTube or something, or then or something like that?
It'll be first off, it'll be if you're interested, we definitely will be showing trailers and things online on Facebook. We also have GoFundMe set up.
Cool.
GoFundMe driven/film, driven-film, but we will be able to share it in terms of a little bit before we go to film festivals. But after we hit the film festivals, we'll definitely roll it out.
Okay, cool. I'll add some links in the bottom of this. So as you progress, you got the documentary coming out. You're doing the film festival. You're still kind of racing more. What's your end goal? Or something that you want to make sure you achieve next?
So for the upcoming goal, I'm looking at doing. I'm currently doing Formula Mazda right now with a great team out of Crescent, Texas. Texas Autosport, and Moses Smith and Satara are the two that really run a great race team there. And I've been going and doing test sessions with them and hoping to do a full season in 2018 that hits Austin, New Orleans, and certain areas. And definitely seeking sponsors is a huge goal, and always is a goal, is seeking financial help. But there's benefits of the sponsorship as well for the sponsor. But that's my main goal, is to definitely continue a full season next year and not just hit one-off races. We were able to hit my first ever Formula Mazda race last year at the end of the year, and I ended up winning it. So my first ever one. So that's my short-term goal. My long-term goal is if we were able to do the season in Formula Mazda, Formula Mazda feeds into an IndyCar ladder system, which allows you to progress in that as well. And I think that's where my eyes are set right now. So yeah, and it's like I don't want to get too motivational on everybody, but like you see those things about the ups and downs of things, and so when you look back on it, you don't always just see this perfect trajectory of where you started to where you end up. It's usually you look back and you're like, man, sometimes I don't feel like I came that far. Yeah. But if I was to go back and relive everything that ever happened from the time I started karting to where I'm at now, a lot of it is just a roller coaster at times. And definitely I've done everything I could to progress. I hope one day that I'm able to, be at a pro level. I believe my driving and things are at a pro level. It's just, making it to that stage. I just really appreciate all the support from family and friends and things. I'm 100% humble about, I'm nowhere near where I currently probably want to be. I feel like I want to progress a lot faster. But I'm taking things as they come. I have a lot of people supporting me. I'm very thankful for those people, my family, my mom, my dad, friends. And it's an awesome journey because it's a lot less fun taking the journey by yourself. And it's a lot more fun, getting to travel with family if they're able to come to races, and doing this documentary with my friend Trevor. We actually go all the way back to elementary school. So it's so cool to be able to do something with somebody that you went to elementary school with, and now you guys are, we're grown-ups now, and we're making this film, and he's helping tell my story basically from the beginning of my racing.
Awesome. So I have to kind of work toward wrapping up. Where can we kind of find you more about you, your social media, website, anything like that?
Yeah, you can definitely find me on Instagram, Facebook, Bryce Cornet, and also the Driven film is definitely something that people can support if you are wanting to. Trailer is about to be available. By the time this podcast probably hits, the trailer is probably going to be out. So definitely check that out. You mentioned the link. Yeah, so the GoFundMe, check out the GoFundMe for Driven. If you would like to donate, there's a lot of perks to donating, invites to the festivals and certain things like that, credit on the film. And we're just making it a fun deal. We're going to have some screenings and things for family, friends, and those that are supporting us, and just making it just a cool journey. Because it's more not so much about, it's definitely not about making the money on the film. It's basically something that I'm gonna cherish for a long time. Me and my family are just a video that kind of wraps up kind of where I'm at now. We plan to expand on this for the next couple of years, just to see where that goes. But yeah, so definitely Facebook, Instagram, and then check out the Driven GoFundMe page.
Cool. I think it's also good because you don't really get a lot of notoriety for like racing sports, and it comes to like media.
Right.
So it can be kind of cool to kind of get somebody to kind of share their journey, because you see a lot of like basketball documentaries, football, but not a lot of racing ones. So
yeah, and I think he's telling it in a very similar way to how a lot of those are told in the racing, in the sports world, athletic world in general. So I think it's something that people will enjoy. I hope they enjoy. So we'll just have to wait and see. But
awesome.
I'm definitely excited about that. That is something that I'm super stoked about.
Cool, man. We look forward to it. And thank you for coming on, Bryce. Really appreciate it.
Dude, I appreciate you, and best of luck. I wish you the best.
You too, man. Thanks for checking out this episode of 9 Point Starter with the Dream podcast. I was your host, Jacoby Gillum. If you enjoyed this episode, please comment, share, leave a review. Love to hear your thoughts. You can check out more about what we're doing with 9 Point at 9point.com. Until the next episode, talk to you soon.